Well, for our project today, we are going to make a loaf of tricolor braided bread. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. All right, I have 3 colors of clay here. I have a dark brown. This one happens to be Sculpey 3 and Suede Brown. This is our bread color we've been using for a couple of weeks. It's 4 parts white to 1 part Sahara. And this color here is going to represent our whole wheat bread. And it's the bread mixture with enough yellow ochre mixed in to make it kind of a golden color. I didn't want to go straight yellow ochre for multiple reasons, mainly that my clay is really old and it would be very crumbly and hard to work with, but also it would be just a little too yellow. I wanted to lighten it up a bit with our bread mixture. Now I've rolled them out into 3 snakes that are just over 1.5 inches long, and I've laid them side by side. I'm going to try and do this so you guys can see what I'm doing. This bread, it doesn't go in a loaf pan. This one happens to be one. I found the picture of this and was reminded of this bread when I was looking for pictures for inspiration for our swirled breads last week. This is actually a bread I used to make quite often when my kids were growing up and I had more people to bake for. I would make this bread quite often when we were going to have soup or stew or something. And it looks really, it's not only tastes really good, it really looks cool on the table. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it in miniature today. See, I'm just kind of trying to make it look like it's been braided. And you can kind of fiddle with it, kind of get it curved the way you want it. And it's not going to be perfect, but neither are loaves of bread when you braid them. And that, I think, looks fine. I'm going to kind of tuck these ends under like I would on the real thing. And to kind of tuck that under so that it looks like it's going to stay together. And now I am going to dust these with chalk, which I forgot to get out, so let me get the chalk out and I'll be right back. All right, now I have my chalks ready. I have my same 3 colors I almost always use for baked goods: a yellow ochre, a reddish brown, and a dark brown. I'll put the whole chalks off to the side. I have used my craft knife to kind of grate them into my little palette. The palette is just one that comes in a package from Dollar Tree. And now we're going to start with our yellow ochre, and this is just a cheap eyeshadow brush. The yellow ochre we can put over pretty much the whole loaf. You want to get it down in the crevices. You want to turn it over. You want to get it on the bottom. Now keep in mind, this particular loaf of bread is not baked in a loaf pan. It's baked on a baking sheet. So it will be browned all the way around on the parts that stick out. All right, and it won't show a lot on the darker colors, and that's okay. Now I'm going to take the red brown. I'm going to use less of the red brown. I'm going to kind of dust it on here. I'm going to try and stay out of the areas that are kind of down, like down in the crevices. This we want mainly up on the top edges. And we want to see some of that lighter color where the bread is closer together and more protected. Same on the bottom. And we will see this a little bit when we cut the bread. We'll see the difference in color. Be sure and burnish your chalk into your clay, because once it's burnished in and baked, it becomes a permanent part of your bread or any project. Now, little tiny bit of that dark brown, not much. You don't want it to look like the dolls have burnt the bread, but we want it to be just a little more browned on the very top and maybe around the ends. All right, now this needs to go sit in the freezer for probably about 15 minutes because we need to solidify this clay so that we can slice it without having it smush, and then we can slice and texture our clay. So I will be back when this is really well chilled. All right, this is fresh out of the freezer. I had it in there for 15 minutes, so it's nice and firm, so I should be able to cut it without it smushing too badly. And just cut some nice slices, however many you are going to want. I think I'll go that far. And there you can see the inside of the bread. So let me get my pointy tool and I need my brush. We're going to do this pretty similar to what we did last week with the swirl bread. And I'll just show you on this part, and then I'll do those off camera so you don't have to watch this whole process again. So I like to start with a wire brush and just kind of poke at the surface with the wire brush. This kind of beats it up a little bit and allows it to start getting some texture without me having to do a whole lot of work. And you might find that that's enough for you and you're happy with that. Let me bring you down just a little bit. And I'm going to try and stay in camera. Now use your pointy tool and just kind of tease the surface. Just barely tickle it. You're just trying to make it look like there's crumbs in there and little holes and all that fun stuff that you have in real bread. And it will raise up little crumbs onto your pointy tool, and that's cool. That's what you're kind of looking for. Now some people put in stuff like cornmeal or something like that in the clay to give it a head start. And I used to do that, but there's a lot more bugs where I live now, and I really don't want a chance getting bugs in my stuff. So I'm really happy with what I've got here. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to texture one side of all of these slices. And then when I get that done, I'm going to bake this for probably 15 minutes because this is pretty thick. Bake it for 15 minutes, allow it to cool, and then I'll come back and show you how this looks. All right, here are my loaf of bread and my slices that I textured. I only textured the top. You could texture the back also, depending on how you're going to use your slices in your displays. And of course I made a second one to do photos of, and I stacked these slices like I did last week with that loaf of bread. So you could do it that way too. And we've got the little heel and everything. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure and check the blog post for photos and the list of the colors I used and all of that stuff. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure and hit the like button. Let me know what kinds of breads or other foods you want to learn to make for your dollhouse. If you like my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you hit the subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up my next video. Thank you very much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.